Alright, hey everybody, I am PJ, and this is my speedrun of Metalmorph. This game is, this is a truly terrible Super Nintendo game. I'd be really hard pressed to find a Super Nintendo game that's worse than this, honestly. I hate this game. So the question arises then, why did I speedrun it? So back in like 2012, 2013, I had done some routing on this game, more or less as a joke, I think. For AGDQ 2013, Spider-Man and the X-Men Arcade's Revenge for the Super Nintendo was slotted to be an Awful Games Done Quick, but I had 5 games to run that year, and I wasn't confident that I'd be able to do justice to that game, because it's a really hard game. So instead, I asked Mike Oyama if I could swap this game in instead, because I was somehow practiced on it, and it would be about the same estimate.
Continue.
And he said yes for some reason. So this game was in AGDQ 2013. I did routing on it. I did my run, and I never played it since then until this year. And I had never recorded a PB for it because this game was just too terrible. But I felt bad about that this year. This is 2016, and I set up an incentive on my channel to improve this run. I set it up to improve a lot of my old runs that are lower quality and not quite as optimized as my current runs. So that they'd look better, both from a video quality perspective and from a gameplay quality. The incentive was met, so I returned to this. And here we are. So I think my old PB was actually the run that I did at AGDQ, which is like a 44 and some change. And the time of this run is 37:13, and that's going by SDA timing, which is when you first gain control until when you lose control at the end. So I guess what's more or less happening in this game is that you're Kano, I think, judging by the opening cutscene, and you get captured by some bad dudes, and you need to get not captured by the bad dudes. So we have to try and escape whatever galaxy they're in and get back to Earth. And we're special because we have this special morph capability. Morph. And it allows us to transform our body into a puddle of liquid metal and go into pipes and stuff like that. And it also allows us to transform our ship. But apparently when we were captured, all of our morph, well, not all of it, but most of our morph capabilities were taken away somehow. So we have to travel to all these different planets and recover what's called morph pods. And then we fly to the next one. And once we have all 8 morph pods, we can go back home. So it's actually a really neat concept the way this game's broken down, because there are 8 action stages, or side-scrollers, whatever you want to call them, platforming, run-and-gun sections. And they're divided by these flying sections. We have to go fly to the next planet. And as you collect a morph pod, your capabilities in the flying sections are changed. So you can transform into a different ship every time you collect a morph pod. So we are at the very beginning of the run. We've completed 1 level, which is a very straightforward stage, and we've collected 1 morph pod. So this is our 1 ship. We don't get to transform. That will change as we play. So what happens in these side-scrolling stages is that you have to collect the morph pod, and the morph pod will open up this door that takes you back to your ship. So, generally speaking, the plan in every stage is to grab the morph pod and find the door. In some stages, it's faster to not use the door. Actually, I think only 1 stage is faster to not use the door and actually manually walk back. So, what makes this game so bad and so hard to control is when you jump, your character fires in the direction that he's facing, or rather the direction that his gun is facing. So you can't really aim any shots while you're jumping. And that's a really big problem, because most of the enemies can't be shot like before you jump. They're at these weird angles, and you can only fire in 8 directions. So the only reliable way to take care of threats is to use the heat seekers. And even then, they're a bit wonky. I don't really know what the pathfinding tries to do on these. But sometimes you can fire it and it just completely avoids the enemy and then you get shot. And the other really big problem is that if you get shot in midair, you take this really, really harsh recoil that doesn't decay. It's just like a straight 30-degree angle, just below the horizontal. 30-degree. That's a bit steep or a bit shallow. It's probably 45 or so. But anyways, you take this really harsh recoil that you can't break out of, and in most cases it sends you straight down to the bottom of the room. And a lot of these rooms are just, or a lot of these stages rather, are just set up as like separated squares, basically. And you start at the bottom, and you have to climb up to the top, and then you take a pipe that takes you into the next square. So getting hit usually costs you a lot of time. So that explains the major hesitations everywhere in this run. You can see some of these platforms have unique properties. So the really thin part on that platform you can't actually stand on when you're human, but you can roll across when you're metal goop. And some platforms have conveyor belts like these. And those move, all conveyor belts move at exactly the same speed of your walking. So when you're on a conveyor belt, you can't actually walk against the grain, you have to jump. And again, if you get shot when you're in midair, you pretty much instantly go back to the beginning of any stage. So it's a really, really big problem. And at least in this stage, they were clear about where the hazards were. You could see the conveyor belts, you could see what direction they're moving. But in later stages, the conveyor belts are completely invisible. Or, not invisible, they're still actually distinct platforms. They're just completely indistinguishable from a normal platform. So you just have to know the stage layouts in advance, or else it's impossible to get through the first time. We also saw in that stage, that stage was really good for introducing a lot of the gameplay elements that you're going to see later. It has the pipes, like I said before, when you turn into the metal slime, or molten metal, or puddle, I don't know what it is. I don't really know what you become, but you turn into the goop, and you can go through the pipes. You don't control yourself when you go in a pipe, you just you enter it, every pipe only has one destination, you don't have to steer or anything. And it takes you straight to the exit of the pipe. It also has switches, and switches deactivate either laser fences or... Actually, I think it's mostly laser fences in this game. I don't think there's any hazards that kill you that can be turned off. So yeah, platforms that you can't walk on as a human, conveyor belts, switches, and pipes. Pretty good introduction there. Another critical part is that the morph pod that we need is at the top of one of the early rooms, which means that if we were to die or fall, we would fall back to the beginning of the entire stage, and we would have to go through all of those different squares or rooms in the entire level all over again. And that's a common trend in this game. So my only criterion for the finished run of this, because I really do not like playing this, was to not have any big falls or big mistakes. So there are minor mistakes all over the place, but I don't have any where I have to redo the entire stage. And that's really important. Alright, so stage 3 is actually a pretty cool stage. We get another power-up here that's pretty neat. We actually got it in stage 1 as well, but I didn't talk about it. And that is the invincibility power-up. It looks kind of like wings. Shield. So this makes us invincible to everything. This lightning, which normally kills you, bullets from enemies, all kinds of stuff. And the power-up that I collected right after that switch were more heat seekers. So the ammo is actually limited in this game, and the amount of ammo you get varies based on difficulty. Okay, I lied, I do take the door in this stage. So yeah, you take the door in every single stage, I believe. So yeah, in hard mode I think you get 10 heat seeker rounds. On normal I think you might get 15. Maybe it was 5 on hard and 10 on normal. I don't really know. I really don't remember. I'm playing on easy though, And originally, I mean, I made that decision years ago when I first played this game. Simply because on hard mode, I thought it was impossible to beat the run and gun sections, just because the enemies are, I mean, they're Jedis. The moment you push a button, the enemies read it and they have a bullet. They have a bullet fired, so that it's completely undodgeable. So the frame that you jump, they have a bullet in motion that you cannot possibly dodge. But with proper heat seeker shooting, you can actually get past them. The reason I'm playing on easy is because the aggression in these shooting sections ramps up like crazy when you get to the higher difficulties. And this is, I believe this is the shooting section that's the longest, between areas 3 and 4. I know it's on either side of 4, but I think it's this one. I think it's on the way to 4. But yeah, alright, so at this point in the game, you can only shoot straight ahead, and in fact, I think the only time you get heat seekers or full screen AoE is after stage 6? 6, 7, 8, yeah, after stage 6, you get a plane that can fire heat-seeking rockets, so you don't actually have to target the enemy that's directly in front of you. But right now, we do have to target the enemies that are straight in front of us. And this is really problematic, especially when you move really quickly and when you collect speed upgrades. And the upgrades are completely random, by the way. And enemies can also choose to stay off-screen for as long as they like. Not in this section, but in the surface encounters. The enemies can just hover along the border, and you can't actually move your ship over far enough to hit them. So you're at their mercy for when they choose to come on screen and make themselves vulnerable. And yeah, the enemies always shoot directly in front of them. Or no, sorry, they target you. So if you manage to find a good line, well, you'll be shooting directly at them. On hard mode, you won't be able to stay there because they'll just shoot you. So you have to hit all of the targets while you're in motion, which is something that just doesn't work in this game. So every one of these shooting sections would either become completely impossible on hard mode, or it would take 5 minutes longer. And the boss fights in particular, I don't know if they're possible. I mean, you'll see the boss fights later, and you'll see how long they take me and how hard it is for me to actually find the sweet spots. And that's with really low aggression enemies. On hard mode, they never actually stop firing bullets. It's just a constant stream of bullets from every single enemy. So you have to just keep circling around the screen. Which means that once in a blue moon, you would get one shot on a boss. And that's it. So, essentially, the short form of this story is that on hard mode, it doesn't make the actual fun parts or the actual skill-based parts any more challenging or any more interesting. It just makes the tedious parts significantly more tedious. So, I think easy is definitely the way to go for this run. The only other thing that changes besides enemy aggression is the placement of the morph pods. And again, at first I thought that they might be in interesting or challenging places on hard mode, but essentially what they did is they put them at the bottom of long falls. Like I mentioned before, the things we want to avoid are falling to the beginning of the stage again. They put the morph pods in places like those, so that you would get a minute and a half or 2 minutes into a stage, and you'd have to deliberately fall in a certain part of the stage to collect a morph pod, take a pipe back to the beginning of the stage, and repeat the entire 2-minute pipe maze to get back to where you left off. And it's really, really awful. I mean, it's an uninteresting design. It, again, just makes the really tedious parts, which is going through pipes and climbing when all of the enemies are already dead, makes those even more tedious because you have to do it twice now. So, easy mode is the quickest, and I think easy mode is the best watch and the best play. So, here we are in Stage 4. Stage 4 is a really tricky stage. Because again, it has a lot of those long falls that you want to avoid. And stage 4 is also the introduction of these flying guys, the guys that just fly by, do the quick drive-by. You can hear when they're coming because the game does the knocking noise. Should be one soon. Oh, I guess not. Didn't play the sound that time. But you can hear when they're coming. And the important thing to note there is that those guys have deadly accuracy. So when you're going to be doing a dangerous platforming section, you hear that knocking, or like that. Or in my case, I was a few frames early on that jump, so I got hit by the lightning just before it disappeared, which is a shame. And then I had to wait another cycle because I wouldn't have been able to land. Oh, here's a really great part too. You have to land on this platform, and if you fall all the way down, you have to go back to the previous room and do the climb all over again. But you have to be holding left as you fall off of a right-moving conveyor belt. So yeah, in all of these rooms, we're now in the top half, and we have to not fall, or else we have to redo the previous climb. And actually landing on the moving platforms at the bottom there and not missing either of those jumps is tremendously difficult. The platforming in this game is terrible. So to actually make jumps that look really trivial is very demanding. This game sucks, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, with those flying guys, they do seem to swoop at consistent intervals. So if you were to load up a save state and play the game or play the stage through, 3 times, they would swoop at the same time each time. So for a lot of these stages, I kind of know when to expect them, and I'll hesitate on platforms to make sure that I kill them before I jump. Because again, if you jump and one swoops by and shoots you, you can lose a literal minute. So it's better to just wait 5 seconds than to take that risk. Alright, so this is our first boss stage. Now, you might think it's weird that I just skipped that power-up, but the way that these bosses work is that they have a number of weak points. This one has 5. No, actually, I think this is 4. This is 4. They're all in the center. I thought this was the plus-shaped one with 5, but no. So yeah, you have to shoot these weak points, and as you break one, the boss begins to move. And you move so fast that if you tap a direction for a frame, you can move about a quarter of the screen length. Or a quarter of the screen height, rather. So to actually center on these stupid weak points is really, really hard. And if you collect a speed upgrade, it becomes near impossible. So to avoid even taking the chance of collecting a speed upgrade, I just dodge the upgrade pod. So that fight, even though it looked like there was a lot of wasted time, was amazing. That was a really good fight. Yeah. Actually dodging the pods is really, really, really scary, because they home in on you really aggressively, and if they hit you, they kill you. So, yeah, it's tough. Alright, so this is a really cool stage. This is a stage I actually don't mind playing. It's essentially a forest of switches, and there are only a few electric barriers. Some switches activate others, some switches deactivate some. I think in this stage I only have to hit like 3 or 4. I only have to hit 2 in that first section. And I think 1 at the end. So it was really fun to try and figure that out. And the platforming here is really, really tough, because when you bonk onto a ceiling, you bounce off. You don't just like hit the ceiling and then keep some of your momentum stalled there. You don't like fall gracefully after you hit the ceiling. You get dunked with equal velocity to your jump. So when you're trying to make a jump like that seems pretty standard, but you brush the ceiling, you get dunked straight down. So the platforming that stage was really rough. but this run did it quite well, so that's good. This ship is a very important ship now. I should mention, at any point you can switch between these ships if you push R or L. And that's going to become very important from now on. Now, previously, none of your ships were very good. Every upgrade was an actual upgrade. But now we have an interesting situation. So, every ship has a normal fire, a primary fire, and a secondary fire. So this ship's primary fire are the basketballs that it's shooting. And the secondary fire is the thing that looks like the hitbox viewer, and that's the heat-seeking missile. So once a box is around an enemy, if you push secondary fire, it launches a missile, and it's guaranteed to hit the target. And it will target them even if they're off-screen. So we now have a consistent way to kill enemies that are off-screen. The other advantage of this ship is that it's slow. This is the slowest moving ship in the entire game. And that's really, really good for bosses, because it means that I can line myself up better. So what you're going to see me doing in the other boss fights is using this ship to line myself up, and then switching to the rapid fire ship that I used in the previous stage for higher DPS. So right here I'm hugging the left wall and I still can't hit them. It's just a really big problem. So one of the huge problems with optimizing this game, one of the reasons I don't really care to push this time any lower, is because the contents of those item capsules are random. And I mentioned this earlier, but the magnitude of this randomness is important. So they can drop 4 different things. Either the temporary shield that I just got, the speed upgrade, which you never want, a continue, which is okay. Not really important for a speedrun, but okay. Or a smart bomb. And the smart bomb instantly wipes the screen of all enemies, and it can only be used once. And you can only carry one, and it resets if you die, and it resets as you go to an action stage. So, going from like the outer space shooting section to the surface shooting section doesn't wipe your smart bomb. But if you were to complete the stage, you don't carry it to the next shooting section. So the smart bomb's really good for waves where the enemies spawn off screen, like this one. All 4 of them spawn on the right side, and again I got one there, and all 4 spawned on the left side off screen. I would have had to wait for them to come on screen. That dude spawned directly on me and killed me, so that's interesting time loss. So you can lose a ton of time depending on how much or how many smart bombs you get, and it's a real pain in the ass. And also depending on where you use them makes a really big difference. Okay, this is stage 6. This is the worst stage in the game. Stage 6 combines a lot of real asshole design choices. It has moving platforms you can barely land on. It has a bunch of switches. And most importantly, it has this purple goop, which slows you down when you walk on it. And then for the last tile of these platforms, it has forward-moving conveyor belts. And it also has invisible conveyor belts elsewhere. So you can't, like, walk and play reaction base. You can't buffer jumps in this game. You have to literally jump, land on the very edge, and jump again before the game pushes you off and down to the bottom. And if you fall on this stage, it's over. Like, GG's, you're not getting back up. I killed that guy just because I thought I had to go through this room again. I had a brain fart. But I don't. I don't have to go through that room unless I fall. And if I fall, the run's already over. So there's this room now, which is pretty much completely impossible to see what the platforms are. Just some more conveyor jumps. And this takes us over here, which is, in my mind, the scariest room in the game. So I want to kill every enemy here to make sure there's no chance of me getting intercepted. Because if you miss that jump, which is extremely tight, it's a 1 or 2 pixel window on a moving platform. Oh, and sometimes the game drops inputs if you're walking forward on a conveyor and try and jump. So you have to be holding right and then jump and switch to left really, really quick, like just a few frames, or else you can't make it. And if you fall in that previous room, you have to redo the entire stage. You go back to the very beginning. And that takes us here, another switch forest, which sucks. And I believe that takes us to the Morph pod and the exit. So, like I said before, Oh, well, I already had the Morph Pod. But, yeah, it takes us back to the beginning. Like I said before, in hard mode, it just makes you redo these stages. It puts the Morph Pods in really awkward places. In that stage in particular, it's really terrible, because it just drops the Morph Pod in the bottom of one of those screens. Alright, so this ship now. This ship is the Destroyer. This ship's secondary fire is... it's a full screen nuke. Well, not full screen, but I mean, you see the blast radius. It's pretty huge. So it's great for taking out these mobs. Any mob that's going to be centered, you can pretty much wipe straight away. And here we have another boss. This is the boss I was thinking about before. The plus-shaped boss with the 3 weak points. So I switched to a fast ship to try and dodge the power-up. I was unsuccessful. Yep. Alright, so this ship's also slow. I don't think it's quite as slow as the airplane, but it's pretty slow. And I'm just getting absolutely terrible luck with the spawns. At that point, I chose to take the death because I was already on a good line with the weak point and I didn't want to lose it. So now the boss is moving around and it's a real pain, and for some reason I'm not switching ships. And it's because I have to line up with these top and bottom weak points afterwards, and with the faster ship it becomes really hard. So trying to line yourself up with one of these moving targets is a nightmare. It's absolutely horrible. And these things can only be hit with bullets. They can't be hit with the missiles, and they can't be hit with the full screen nuke, and they can't be hit with smart bombs. So, I mean, you just have to, like, stay in place. You have to pick a height, like right around the center. You have to sometimes move left and right, and you just have to hope that he passes by. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I think I died, what, 4 times there? And this is on easy. Imagine trying to fight that boss when there are 3 enemies that are constantly firing a stream of bullets. And I mean a stream, not just like 2 or 3 bullets. I mean like 15 bullets on screen from each enemy. It's impossible. Alright.
Continue.
So, stage 7 is another stage that I actually rather enjoy. It's not a pain to look at. That death is intentional, so that I can abuse iframes to jump here. But yeah, it's not a pain to look at. It's pretty clear about where the obstacles are. And when you actually know where to go, the route is pretty neat. So, there you go. There's a pretty good example of what it's like to bonk. Even a jump that looks as simple as that is really a pain. So, again, they put like 20 switches here, but we only have to hit 3 or 4 of them. Hit this one, then we go back to the right, and this will deactivate... Oh! Yeah, we already hit that switch. The right is the pipe. Yeah, so the switch we hit deactivates the fire. That's down here that allows us to get to the pipe. Oh, man. So I cannot stress enough how bad this game controls. I mean, as terrible as this run looks, this is actually not that bad. Oh, I kind of lied about conveyors. These are all, or about obstacles being clear. These are all conveyor belts. And you can't really tell what direction they're moving. Yeah. So, this stage has that one room. Which in the grand scheme of things is not that bad. But yeah, this game controls like total trash. You saw in that conveyor room, I was kind of like wiggle jumping. So I was holding the jump button and then just wiggling left and right to climb really quick. You can't control your jump height, but those platforms are spaced at max jump height. So if you do a max height jump, you instantly land on it. And you can't buffer jumps. You can't just hold the jump button and auto jump when you land. You only auto jump. You can only buffer a jump if you change direction, or if you release the D-pad and repress it. So that item pod killed me again. I couldn't move fast enough to dodge it. It's amazing. The most threatening enemy is a power-up. And again, this is a boss stage, so I don't want to collect any speed upgrades. And this is a really, really long section because you have this screen, then you have a surface section, and then you have another outer space section. So there's a lot of chances for power-ups. And if you get 2 speed upgrades, there's almost no chance of you targeting the boss. And it's a real problem. Okay, so now you're going to see me switching between ships pretty frequently. And I want to switch between this ship, which is good for individual targets, and then the ship immediately after it, this one with the nuke, which is good for wiping one particular formation of this group. That Smart Bomb use was not something that I wanted, but Smart Bomb is mapped to your secondary fire button. So when I tried to use the bomb, which is secondary fire, it used Smart Bomb instead. And it's a real pain. I'm getting extremely good luck with Smart Bombs here, though. But yeah, it's a real pain, because for most of these ships, you want to be holding primary fire and secondary fire constantly, because it just gives you more bullets, or more missiles, or whatever the case may be. But when you have a Smart Bomb and you're trying to save it, you lose a lot of firepower. So, at this point, it's not a huge deal, because our ships are just so good at killing things. But earlier on in the game, getting a Smart Bomb can be a real hassle. Like, it's really easy to accidentally detonate it just by holding the primary and secondary fire button and accidentally shooting an item capsule. Alright, so the ship that we got from that Morph pod is a ship that allows us to fire 2 missiles at once. And they're both the heat-seeking missiles from the Ship 5 or Ship 6, whatever the previous one was. Except we can fire 2 now. So now the luck from the enemies really doesn't matter, because we're going to be killing them at about the same time constantly. So it's really only super RNG heavy in the early stages and with Smart Bombs. Alright, so this boss, if I remember right, only has 3 weak points. I hope I'm not wrong. It should just be like in the corners of these. I don't even know what I would call those things. And that's good because there are fewer weak points, but it's also bad because they're not in a line with each other. Like, they're not. I mean, obviously they're in a line, but I can't just like line up with one and then move horizontally to hit the next one. I have to realign myself with every single one. It's a problem. So what I'm doing here, I mentioned it before, I'm pretty sure, but I want to try and line myself up with each of them before I break any of them, and I just want to weaken them. So get a bunch of shots, but don't kill it, and then move on to the next one. And I got a lot of shots in. I did a really good job of weakening them here. Unfortunately, when you line up with some of these weak points, you've completely obscured yourself from the enemies and the bullets. So you just kind of have to guess when there are enemies there. But that was a really good fight. I did really well with weakening them. And I did well with lining up after the fact. So, nothing to be ashamed of there. So we're moving into the final stage now. We have one more side scroller and then one more flight section after that. The final stage is much like all the others. It doesn't really throw anything new at us. There are some more invisible holes in walls that you have to become a puddle and move through. There's some more hidden conveyors or some more switches. It's just a lot more of the same. And it's slightly less a dick about it than some of the previous stages. Okay, and I morph back early there because at the end of every shooting section you have to morph back to the original ship, and if you don't do it manually, the game has to do it automatically after it takes control from you. So you can just speed up that cutscene by doing it automatically. Alright, so again, the chain on the second platform here you can't actually stand on. That's a fake one. That's a conveyor belt. So, yeah, I handled that well. I killed the target before I tried to get up there. I didn't get knocked down. That is actually a hidden conveyor belt, but only on the side, and the far right you can't stand on. So there's that, which is a really big problem. This platform, despite looking like all the others, doesn't actually let you fall through. And now we have some holes in some of these other platforms that we have to go underneath. And that enemy was a pretty good example of what the homing shot generally does. You fire the bullets and they just go anywhere but there. We have another conveyor belt room, except this time there are 4 enemies on the side. And this room in particular is a really big problem on hard mode because they'll anti-air you before they're even on camera. And you don't have time to stand and shoot them because you're constantly on conveyors. So it's a problem. It's a really problematic area. Alright, so here's another section where I absolutely do not want to fall down. And normally when I get to this point in the stage, there's a flying guy that comes by, which is why I stood in place there. But apparently the rest of my stage was better than normal. So he was a few seconds delayed. So essentially I just wasted a bunch of time, but I did it for safety. Hit the switch. One more conveyor jump here. And again, they put the platform that you're supposed to land on, they made that a conveyor belt only for the very edge and pushing you off the edge. So again, if you're not prepared, you just jump up there and fall immediately. But yeah, that was a fine stage. I mean, the only big problem was that I hesitated waiting for the flying guy when I didn't have to, and the homing shot not actually homing at the bottom. But both of those mistakes are mistakes that I would make again if I were to try and improve this run.
Continue.
So yeah, generally not bad. Now we get this, the final ship. And that warp portal thing at the end, that's the end of the game. We don't have to do another surface thing. This ship can fire 4 of those homing missiles at once. So this is the ultimate. But yeah, we don't really get to use it for anything important. We kind of fly around. This is our victory lap, more or less. And that's it. That's the end. So, yeah, that was Metalmorph 3713. Get a sweet flying away FMV. And now we get to see Kano pilot flying home. I don't really know what the plot of this is. I think we were aware of these other beings that were in the other parts of the universe, but we didn't know if they were friendly or not. So they sent this guy, Kano, as an ambassador or something, and he immediately was shot and then captured and then studied. And on his way back, they were really concerned about the bad dudes understanding our technology, stealing our technology. But the moral of the story is that those guys were actually bad dudes and they stole our stuff and know that we exist and now are coming to kill us. So we escaped, but I mean, they're gonna come for us and they're gonna finish the job. So really didn't do anything. But yeah, I really hope that this video at least discourages other people from having to play this game. sometimes when I run bad games like these, and this one, there's nothing redeeming about this game. Like, it's just total garbage. A lot of the other bad games, like Lawnmower Man or Lagoon or something, it's at least satisfying to get good, or the game's casual but terrible as a speedrun. This game's just bad all around. So hopefully there are people out there that played this like as a kid or something and wanted to see the end. Hopefully they can just watch the speedrun now. The most consolidated experience you can possibly get of a full video game. And hopefully you don't have to play this. So I hope it at least serves that purpose, or at least can function as a guide or something to people who want to finish this game for some reason but don't know how. So there, in that scene, they show the bad dudes clearly having mastery over our technology, transforming and going through the portal to kill us. That's the end. Thankfully, there's no sequel to this game, so we don't actually have to see any conclusion to this story. The credits are actually pretty interesting in this, because we have guys like Eric the Lund and Richard Dicko Mather. And they had a guy on staff whose nickname was The. It's pretty incredible. And at the end, they just give up and they start thanking like random bands. Neil Sticking Out Brown, The Busies, Ashanti, Nirvana, R.E.M., U2, The Proclaimers. Yeah. Now go play again! Fantastic. No congratulations or good work. Just do it again. Alright, thanks guys. Hope you enjoyed.